Hi, Gooby here. Today I'd like to talk about being afraid of death. I was thinking about it actually yesterday. I was thinking about, well, do you actually die? Now, I know that might seem like a silly question. But does our self actually experience death? And that might seem like a silly question too. Well, of course, everyone dies. Like, every living being dies, except for some jellyfish are immortal. They can reverse age, go back to the polyp stage, attached to a rock, and then they grow back to be an adult and they swim off and they can go back to attaching to another rock and become like a jellyfish baby again. So they could theoretically live forever. Immortal jellyfish. That's an interesting one. But for the rest of us that our bodies die, like, do we actually experience death? And is this something to be afraid of? I was thinking about it yesterday, and I was like, I don't think that we actually experience death. So hear me out. I think when we die, and I used to do surgery, neurosurgery, and I saw people die in the hospital. Most of they were unconscious at the time. Some were in comas, some were severely injured from trauma, car accidents or gunshot wounds, or their heart stops, the heart monitor flatlines, all the alarms go off in the either the ER or the ICU, wherever they are, and depending on if they've got directives to resuscitate them, they get CPR and shocked in their heart, or just let them pass. But the thing is, I don't think you actually experience death. Let's say you're going to die. Well, you're alive before you die. You're alive, and then let's just say someone died while conscious. Like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a not so morbid way of dying. Let's just say your heart stops. Like an arrhythmia. Heart goes into an abnormal rhythm and then can't get out of it, and then you just die. But you're aware of it up until right before you lose too much oxygen and your brain shuts down. Well, let's just imagine that I'm sitting on the beach like I am now. I can hear the waves, I can see trees. I'm sitting on a dead tree, and there are live trees, and there's a bird making a very pretty sound above me that's sitting on a dead tree. I can see my wife and my dog walking on the beach. There are seashells all around. Pieces of dead crab picked apart by birds, and my dogs try to pick apart some dead crabs. I guess she likes crabs, but I had to stop her from eating it. But that happened in the past. Like right now, what I see my wife and my dog far away on the beach. I hear waves, I see light, I see leaves, dirt, rocks, shells, this pretty gnarly looking driftwood that I'm sitting on. I feel that. I feel the sunshine on me. Let's just imagine that I died now from a heart arrhythmia. My heart's kind of beating in a funny way. It feels weird in my chest, like a flutter or something. Finding it really hard to breathe. This kind of hurts. Something hurts my chest, and I don't feel so good. I feel really weak. I feel woozy. And then I pass out. And then I die. Well, did I actually experience death? If that happened. I don't think so. I think I still experience life all the way up until I'm dead, but then I'm not there anymore. Now, this comes with some conjecture because I haven't died. Well, this body hasn't died. Maybe I'm part of something that's lived and died many, many, many times, an almost infinite number of times. So maybe I do know what death is. I just don't remember it in this form. But when you die, you become unconscious, and then you're gone. You don't experience being dead. You're not like, oh, I am slain. Like in the, I think Shakespeare, sometimes they would say, I am slain. There is not a I am slain moment. My dog came over here and is digging. There's not a moment when I'm dead and I say, oh, I'm dead. Now, there are people that have had near-death experiences, not the same as dying, because they came back to life. But they have some weird things to say about that experience. I know one person in my life that's had that, and they were in the hospital, and then their heart stopped, and then they were floating above their body, watching doctors resuscitate them and bring them back to life. And then they went back into their body, and they were conscious again. But during that time, they were like flatlining or something. Not dead, but close to it. Near-death experience. And there's lots of reports of people who have near-death experiences saying that they were out of their body, they're floating. Some people say they saw a tunnel and then light, or there's some beings that were there, or they had panoramic vision, not limited by our biology, but vision panoramic, where you don't even have to turn, you just see everything. And having their life events and choices and ripple effects of their choices flash before their eyes. There's lots of stories about that. And a sense of calm and peace. A lot of people say that, not everybody. And that when they come back to life, they're much less afraid of dying after that experience. But they didn't die. They came near to it. So I don't think you can actually experience death, because death is you're no longer in this body anymore. You're in a complete, well, if whatever we are continues, we're in a completely different paradigm. You're not limited to the body. So it's a completely different experience. if there is an experience. So, really, in this body, I only can live. I can't experience death, because once I die, I can't experience anymore in this form. So, yesterday I was thinking, all I have is life. I don't have death. All I have is this moment where I'm alive, seeing my dog and my wife and the waves and hearing the waves and feeling the sunshine. That's all I have. And that's all I ever will have until I die and I'm not this anymore. I'm something else or nothing. And I thought yesterday, that's actually pretty dang cool. It's pretty cool. And being alive is like really a special experience. It's delicate, it's mysterious, it's wonderful, filled with wonder. Yeah, wonderful, filled with wonder. How does this even happen? How am I in this body and experiencing this and talking to a camera, and then this information gets coded in ones and zeros and is transferred through electricity and fiber optic cables to a machine that interprets all that ones and zeros of me being alive and in this world that's alive to you. And you get to see it, and you get to think about these things too. That's full of magic. How does that even happen? How are you? How is my dog her? She found another piece of crab. Yeah. My dog found another piece of crab and was chewing on a leg. Well, I think that there's not much to be afraid of, honestly, because all we have is just being alive. That's what I think. I think that is something that I think can really reshape the way I feel about things and what I choose to do. Instead of being so afraid of dying, I appreciate being alive. Instead of doing so many things to escape death, I use that energy to do things to be alive, to enjoy this wondrous experience that is being a human being. I'd like to share one story that is about a horseshoe crab. A horseshoe crab is an animal that it looks like a creature from an alien movie. In the alien movie, there's the big scary ones with like the black, long, elongated heads and sharp teeth that have acid for blood. I guess they all have acid for blood. But before that, there's the face suckers that like they crawl and they swim, and then they jump on someone's face and then like pump the alien egg into the stomach. Well, horseshoe crabs kind of look like that. They don't have as long of arms, but they kind of like, they're about like this big in their body, and they got a long tail, and they got like 10 legs or something. And they primarily live on the bottom of the water, and then they crawl out onto the beach. Occasionally, they mate on the beach, I guess, and they swim. Here's an interesting thing. So they walk like this, and they eat stuff on the bottom of the ocean. But they can swim, and the way they swim is they flip themselves over, and then they use their 10 legs to like do this, and then they use their long tail, which is like a weight to like as a rudder. So they swim upside down like that, and then when they get to where they want, they flip themselves back over. They have multiple eyes. They've got 2 compound eyes with multiple lenses, and then they've got like eyes on the front here, and then like on the cheek and on the back. It's really interesting animal. And one thing I found out about them that I find really interesting is that they are called living fossils, and the reason for that is that they haven't really changed much since they appeared on this planet. They appeared on this planet about 450 million years ago. Now, the Earth is 4,500 million years, or 4.5 billion years old. And horseshoe crabs appeared 450 million years ago, approximately. Now, to give you an idea, humans appeared about 0.3 million years ago. So, horseshoe crabs have a lot of Earth experience over our experience. But what's interesting is they haven't changed their shape much. Over that hundreds of millions of years, they look pretty similar to how they did a long time ago. It's like well, like other animals, they like change their shape. They evolve over time to adapt to different niches in our environment. But these animals were like perfect for their environment and flexible for changing environments. They didn't really have to change. Hey, there's a giant jellyfish. There's a giant red jellyfish there. Okay, we're gonna have an intermission. Okay, we're gonna take a short break, and we're gonna look at this giant jellyfish. Well, it's huge. Whoa. That's a jellyfish, right? It's still alive, I would think. Wow. Touch it? You want to touch it? It would probably... Don't jellyfish sting? Yeah, I don't want to touch it. Wow. That's so pretty. Cool. All right, we're back. That was cool. Humongous jellyfish. Well, these horseshoe crabs, I guess they're just like one of the perfect life forms for living on Earth, because they survived 450 million years. They're older than dinosaurs. They predate dinosaurs. They predate trees, if you can imagine that. Trees came into being after horseshoe crabs. Flowers are only 150 million years old. That's wild. But these things are still around. And they're still, they live about 20 years. This is their average lifespan. And they've survived countless mass extinctions. But now they're becoming, their numbers are dropping, and for a very weird reason. And this was the part of the story I want to share. They, it's so bizarre, but like humans have started to get these horseshoe crabs off the beach and hook them up, like restrain them with a strap with their head down, and then they cannulate them and then drain out their blood. Their blood is blue. It's not acidic like in the alien movies, where if you kill an alien in the alien movies, acid just goes through everything, and that's a big problem if you're in a spaceship that needs to be airtight in the vacuum of space. But these horseshoe crabs, they don't have acidic blood, but they've got blue blood. It looks really cool if you look at a picture. But I saw a picture of like a bunch of these horseshoe crabs strapped down and humans draining their blood into these vials filled with blue blood, and at times they'll drain like a third or half of their blood volume, and then they'll release them in their weakened state after being drained of blood. Some people eat horseshoe crab, but yeah, I was like, why are humans draining their blue blood? And I learned about it, and it's because there is a chemical that's in their blood that can detect bacterial contamination. And so if you isolate that chemical out of their blood, you can put that chemical in things that are supposed to be sterile, like medication vials, anything that's packaged that needs to be sterile for like medical use or injections or IVs or something like that. This chemical can be used to detect if it got contaminated by bacteria. And so that's why we're killing the horseshoe crabs. And I was thinking, so by being afraid of dying from bacterial contamination, humans, by being afraid of dying, we are killing this creature that predates trees. That's 450 million years old and has survived so many mass extinctions. But now we're picking them off the beach and draining them of their blood so that we don't die from a bacterial infection. And I just thought, man, humans have such a weird way of thinking about life and death. We're so afraid of dying. Whereas horseshoe crabs have lived and died, I mean, if you say 450 million years divided by 20, what is that? 22 million years? Or 22 million times of dying for one lineage of horseshoe crab. But there's not just one lineage. There is a lot, like, I don't even know how many horseshoe crabs there exist on the planet. But it's going to be, I mean, these horseshoe crabs have lived and died so many times. I mean, probably billions or trillions of times, depending on how many there are on the planet. And then, you know, the horseshoe crabs aren't like gathering some shrimp and draining their blood to like use their blood as an indicator to see if the water's clean enough, and in that way killing off shrimp so that horseshoe crabs can survive. No, they just live and do what they need to, and they kill some animals to eat them, and then they reproduce. And they die. Billions of times. Well, yeah. I just find something very bizarre about the way that we think about dying. Yeah, and also something very peculiar about the fact that I don't think you actually experience death. Now, I haven't died, so I don't know for sure. But it seems like if you do experience something, it's in a completely different paradigm of being locked into this body. I mean, these near-death experiences maybe give us a clue as to what it's like. So, yeah. I don't think we need to be worried about death. I think that fear of death motivates all kinds of weird behaviors in humans. I know there's this thing going around now that people want to reverse age with like chemicals and supplements. It's a big buzz that you can reverse your biological age, even though your chronological age doesn't reverse. You can't go back in time, and people are spending a lot of money on these supplements, and I know people who are doing that, and I've looked into it, and I'm like, okay, well, yeah, sure. I know that jellyfish can go back in age and become baby jellyfish again, and then live a full life cycle again, and then revert back. I know that eating vegetables and fruit can actually increase the telomere length on our chromosomes, and that's a sign of aging. The ends of our chromosomes, they can get withered away or damaged and broken off. But if you eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, you can actually build the end caps back onto our chromosomes, and that's a sign of reverse aging, at least for our DNA. There's a number of things you can do, and I think that's important for being healthy, like having some vegetables and fruit every day. But the idea to live forever and to view death as the ultimate loss, I challenge that view. I think that it drives a lot of insanity like draining the blood of horseshoe crabs, buying supplements to try to stave off the inevitable, for fear that you will die. I think fear of dying is the cause of a lot of insanity. Well, those are my thoughts about whether you can actually experience death, and some of the insanity that ensues when people try to escape the inevitable. But don't be afraid of it, because I don't think you actually experience that moment of saying, "Oh, I'm dead." I don't think that ever happens. So all we really have is this: being alive. I'm alive. You're alive. I think that's all we actually have, and that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Well, I will continue to explore this kind of subject a little bit more, because there's some more things that I want to tease apart. See you in the next video. Bye.